So what's going on today in cybersecurity? What's the big news out there? And more importantly, what does it mean to average small business out there, like you, like me? This topic is near and dear to my heart for a few reasons. I have seen existing clients, past clients, and other businesses get hacked. And often it's because they didn't take security seriously, or they didn't have good data backups. It's super stressful to the client, to their users, to us, to me, because I feel like we let down the client, even though we may have given recommendations that didn't follow up on, but I still feel like we failed if something happens to you. And I don't want a hack client ruining our reputation because we didn't recommend solutions or somehow they still got compromised. And thirdly, thugs are specifically targeting IT companies like us and to hold our clients ransom because they know we have often the keys to the castle. And so we have to up our game as well. And rising tides float all boats, they say. We all need to work together on these things. We can't do this alone. I need your help, and vice versa. So my name is Wim Kirchhoff. I'm the founder of Crafty Penguins and Kirchhoff Technologies. And today I'm going to review two sets of data provided by our partner Sophos, looking at data from 2019 and 2020. It's a slide deck that they've prepared. I've actually simplified it. There's a lot of slides, so I've just removed some, and I hope to draw out some lessons and conclusions along the way. And I hope it will be eye-opening for you as it was for me. So this is a global survey of 3,000 IT managers. These are larger companies, but as you'll see, these actually apply to smaller companies as well. So they looked at, interviewed people from about a dozen countries in about a dozen different sectors. So it's not specifically finance or technology or construction. It's a good mix in there. There's many threats out there. The numbers are that 68% of companies fall victim to some sort of cyber attack in the last year. That varies by company, of course, depending on how much they spend on it, their policies, country rules, just the overall economic health of that country and state of business there. And shockingly, from this, 91% of these companies that were a victim of some sort of cyber attack had up-to-date protection. So that means antivirus and a firewall typically. So don't think that just because you have antivirus and spam filtering and a firewall that you're good to go. That's the furthest from the truth. And there's a lot of attacks. The biggest one is through phishing emails. As you can see here, data breach, data getting exposed online, private records, malicious code, so people opening a PDF, a PowerPoint, some other file they shouldn't have. Software exploits, there's a lot of programs that have exploits. It could be Chrome, Firefox, PDF readers, all sorts of those common applications have exploits, which could be exploited, especially if you're running an older version that has not been patched. Ransomware, somehow your network, your servers getting encrypted and held ransom, so you got to pay the money to get your data back. Passwords getting stolen is always a big one. That's called a credential theft, and cryptojacking. There's actually 10% of attacks were discovered on mobile devices, so this is higher than you would think. And this does depend on the country. Some countries use mobile a lot more. For example, India was higher. Some other countries are lower. But we're seeing a lot more mobile apps on iPad or tablets, smartphones. These apps are getting very rich and often are more usable than the ones on your regular Windows or Mac computer. And so that as mobile usage goes up, we're seeing more attacks on mobile. These IT managers also said that, software exploits, so things like your PDF readers, other programs, Microsoft Office, those are one of the top 3 security risks. So this one is really interesting. These are larger companies, like 500 plus employees. On average, it takes 13 hours for that compromise to be detected. So a lot of damage can be done in 13 hours. Your whole network could be wiped out, could be spreading to other organizations, could have lost your data, may have lost your backups, a lot of things going on in 13 hours. And like with any health crisis, how long it takes to detect it and diagnose it and fix it is key. Often, even weeks, months later, the organizations never know how actually they were compromised, whether it was a firewall, somebody clicking on something that shouldn't have been, a web browser, an email issue. So 20% of the time, they never really figure that out, even though they hire the forensic experts. Often, 17% of the time, which is really high, companies don't even know how long that threat was in the network. They think, hey, I got hacked today, I got compromised last night, but it might have been weeks, months, or years before. And these larger companies, they're dealing with security incidents every single month. Obviously, within a smaller company, this may scale down, but not necessarily so. There's also most of these security incidents are not actually infections. It's just showing up on the alerts and the reports, but they must be treated as serious. Just like the police get a lot of false claims, or in the fire department, a lot of false 911 calls. That also happens in cybersecurity. So it takes a lot of time and money to investigate those. So yeah, our partner Sophos, who we're a Sophos Gold partner, they have a product that helps to detect these sorts of things. So you're not totally infected yet, but there's a stronghold in a network. So detecting that early, so we can deal with it. And looking at things that maybe got around the antivirus, got around the firewall, understanding how the threat got in, tracking that back, what are all the steps, and how does it matter? And because we don't want to know just that one step, but what's all the steps along the way to get you crypto locker to held ransom. And then it goes to the Sophos labs where they can look into that and investigate it, prioritize, and let us know. IT people, including ourselves, we spend a lot of time on cybersecurity, and 26% is a lot. We would rather be using good technology and process to keep that down, but focus on how do you make your business more efficient, more effective, more profitable, and more enjoyable, and not just on security. Obviously, security is always important, but how do we help your business to grow, to be more successful? Most companies wish they had a stronger team, whether it's in-house or a consultant or a contractor, to deal with these threats, to detect them and just deal with it before they become worse. And having the right people with the right skills is really important. So that's why, as an owner, as a CEO of obviously my company, it's something I'm investing in, hiring people that have the security background and the attitude, the desire, the will to get into these things, and the ability. So managed threat response is another Sophos product where they will, on our behalf, their team will deal with threats. So even while we're sleeping, their team is working 24/7 to go and triage and look at these things and even mitigate them, remove the threats by the time we wake up and get to work. This ends up being a lot cheaper than keeping staff on shift during the night. So it frees up your team, frees up our team as well. And so we can focus on things that matter more to your business than dealing with these threats. Network security. A lot of our clients underestimate the amount of encrypted traffic. And why this is important is that firewalls don't do well with encrypted traffic. It's encrypted. They can't read it. So the firewall can't even inspect that traffic to see what's going on. So typically on the traffic going through a firewall, it's around 80, I would say even more like 90% of that traffic is encrypted. Email, web traffic, file transfers, downloads, uploads, it's all encrypted now. The firewall can barely see what website it's going to unless it has the smarts to inspect that encrypted traffic. And even the viruses are using encryption now to bypass firewalls and such. Only 3 to 4% of companies actually decrypt all the network traffic to see what's going on. So that's shockingly low. And why? Big reason is performance impact. Equipment is not good enough to do it. So we make sure we put in Sophos firewalls that do have enough grunt, as we would say, enough CPU and memory and disk to actually decrypt traffic and see if there's any viruses, worms, malware, ransomware in there. And there's also concerns around privacy, user experience. Some things might break if it's not set up properly or it's buggy, and it could be complicated to implement or for the end users to navigate. And obviously you need good technology, which Sophos has. Assuming you have the hardware and the software in place, it is possible to do. Synchronized security is a concept where we have all the parts of the security ecosystem working together. The firewall, antivirus, email filtering, data encryption, all working together. So if any one part is compromised, we lock down everything. If there's any sort of red flag, we lock everything down, which is a newer thing. Not many companies have implemented it. It is a bunch of work to get going, but we can help you navigate that. Get everything dialed in and locking together, working together. So an important thing here is not just that the different software components are bought from the same vendor, but they've been designed to work together. So a lot of companies do say that they realize they're not spending enough on people and technology, and they need to spend more. So you're not alone there. Covered that one around the amount of time spent on cybersecurity. In some ways, this percentage should be higher to make sure we're doing the right things. But the key thing is, are we doing the right things? We could be spending time and it's not effective, but is that time? Yeah, let's focus on being effective there. And as mentioned earlier, 91% of organizations were running up-to-date software, antivirus, firewalls, and such, and they still got compromised. So clearly, just having these tools in place is not enough. You also need the process and the people to watch these things and adjust the policies. And here's the whole synchronized security concept with Sophos Central. Looking at from left to right, we have the firewall, a key part, but not the only part. Wireless security, email, web, encryption, mobile, server, and endpoint. Having all these things working together in tandem. So that was the data for the, early 2019 when they did this. So looking kind of back at 2018. All right, so here's the Sophos report with the state of ransomware for 2020. And this is based on interviewing 5,000 people across 26 countries in January and February of 2020, just this year. And again, from multiple sectors. I won't read those all. And 1 in 2 organizations got hit by ransomware last year. This is huge. So it's about the same as the previous year, within a couple percent. Size doesn't matter. So again, this survey was sent to companies between 100 and 5,000 employees, and it's about the same percentages. So if you're 5, 10, 50 employees, you can assume about the same numbers as well. And public sector gets hit hard as well, but they tend to be a bit better prepared as they are public facing and it's the government. So while you see a couple news alerts for that of the local hospital or government getting hacked somewhere, overall they do better. And the impact of ransomware, and they're actually quite successful in encrypting data. It's quite easy, and so they encrypt it. Sometimes the attack gets stopped before the data can be encrypted, but it's not that often. It's only 24% there, and sometimes the data is not encrypted, but the victim is still held to ransom. There's different ways of doing that. They don't need your data. They could be your reputation, or they could just have the data and threaten to release it online. And it could be really humiliating, embarrassing, or just legal consequences, liabilities of having it online. So there's all sorts of things there. And data in the public cloud is also a mainstream target. So this refers to your Dropbox data, SharePoint, OneDrive, Box.com, the list goes on where cloud data is. So don't think that's just because you don't have a file server and you're keeping your data in the cloud and it's, in quote, encrypted. It can still be compromised even though it's encrypted all the way through. So yes, on-premise data, private data, public cloud, data everywhere is at risk. The lesson of this is don't assume that because you're avoiding the cloud and keeping everything on-premise with an old traditional file server or Microsoft Exchange server that you're more secure. You can still be hacked that way. And 1 in 4 companies pay the ransom to get their data back. Just quite a bit. It's not everyone. Some have. The good news is that a lot of people use their backups, or perhaps the data that got encrypted didn't matter. It was old data. And some countries are more likely to pay. Up to India and Sweden, as you can see on the left side here on this graph. They apparently have a lot of pirated software and bad practices online. And Canada is actually quite far on the right here, but still a good 10% of companies in Canada that get hacked are paying the ransom, 1 out of 10. And I don't want you to be that 1 out of 10. Most companies get their data back either by paying the ransom or recovering from some sort of backup they've had. So 94% is quite high. A lot use backups, but it shows that there's still a lot of companies paying. There's a good 30-40% of the companies are paying the ransom. And these are no longer hundreds of dollars or thousands, they're getting to the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And obviously these numbers are for large companies, but the cost is high for them paying the ransom or don't pay the ransom. So insurance comes in is 1 in 5 companies have poor cybersecurity insurance, and I've seen this with my clients. I believe it's higher, that they think they have cybersecurity insurance, but it's an old policy, or the agent who set them up with it, the broker, didn't understand it and let them get by with poor policy. So when you come to make the claim, it actually doesn't cover a ransom, for example. Most companies have some sort of policy, but often it's inadequate. So I really encourage everyone to always double check this every single year, ask really hard questions, make sure you get the right coverage in place. And yeah, really right. Mention that. And so across all the countries, the cyber insurance is often in place, but whether it covers the ransomware really fluctuates. And so Canada's in the middle there. That 62% of these companies have the right level in place. So there's like 38% do not have ransomware insurance in place. So very important to check that out. And most people are using, if the companies have the cybersecurity insurance, they'll use that to pay it, or they might say, well, it's not that important to me. So it's kind of, if insurance is going to pay it anyways, they'll pay it. But if insurance isn't there to pay for it, they may not. They might just take the hit and continue on without it if they can. Huge payout rate from insurance. So what are the attack techniques? There's a lot. The biggest way is through file downloads with a malicious link. So whether it's you're coming in through a social media network or an email you receive with a link to download something. And then a remote attack on your server is less. Whether that could be a server in the cloud, in Amazon, in Azure, somewhere else, or in your office behind a firewall or in a data center. Whether it's like an open remote desktop or a web application, there's ways to get in that way as well. Third one is emails with malicious attachments, where attached to the emails, not as a link, but as a PDF or a Word document or zip file, there's something there for the user to click, and bad things happen. And then the list goes on. USB removable device is actually there. It's 7%, which is higher than what I would have guessed. 20, 30 years ago, we were talking about floppy disks and CD-ROMs having these sorts of things. Well, obviously, those are way off the list now. So these are changing from year to year, decade to decade. So I'd like to sum up the recommendations is realize that ransomware is a real risk today. Assume you will be hit. It's a matter of time. It's like 50% of companies. 1 in 4 victims actually stop the attack. So the advice there is make sure you got anti-ransomware technology to stop the attack before your data gets compromised. And again, you got the average of 13 hours there. Can you get that down to an hour or half an hour? And data in the public cloud is at risk, just like it is on premise. So protect data wherever it is, on your phone, on your laptop, in the cloud, on websites, in Dropbox and cloud file storage. Backups work. You need to have them. Wherever your data is, cloud, offline, online, you need to back up your data. Don't trust somebody else to be doing it. That may not be the case. And keep them in multiple locations, offsite and offline. Make sure you have really good insurance in place. Get coverage for ransomware is a big one. There's other ones as well. And attackers try again and again. So having antivirus is not enough. Having firewall is not enough. Encryption is not enough. Education of your users is not enough. You need all these things working together. And here's some of those numbers again of how these companies are getting hacked. These are larger companies. This will scale down to smaller ones as well, because we're all using the same technologies ultimately. File download, remote attack on your server, bad attachments, remote desktop protocol. This is a big one with work from home, work anywhere. These days with COVID-19, misconfigured public cloud instances. You think the salesperson sold you that, hey, this is a secure way to go, and their encryption, and they've got all these policies, but it's not set up properly and you're wide open. Through your suppliers, and because typically your employees will trust your suppliers. So if your supplier gets compromised, they could send emails that look really legitimate and trustworthy and are bad. And people fall through for transferring money that they shouldn't, etc. And USB removable media is still there. And Intercept X from Sophos with EDR helps to stop these and early notification and warning and to deal with these threats. So thank you for sticking with me so far through my review of this 2019 and 2020 data around cybersecurity and the state of the industry. And there's a lot of companies getting hacked and falling prey or victim for these various phish testing and other compromises. And so I hope you've learned that antivirus and firewalls are not enough, and even the companies that are fully patched and up to date are still getting compromised. So it's not just having a better firewall, but there's a whole bunch of things that need to go in place for a secure ecosystem. Again, we need to be right 100% of the time, and a hacker only needs to be right once to get in through all the defenses. So if you have, let us know your comments on this video, any questions around these various topics around security. Send it to anybody in my team or myself, and happy to respond to those. We did a cybersecurity webinar as well in July 2020. That recording is available on the website. You can find it from the blogs or just ask our team. And we actually did a live hacking demo showing how antivirus and firewalls are not enough. You also need the best practices, policies, procedures, and people in place. And we do also have a cybersecurity bundle offering, which we've started offering and rolling out to clients recently with a combination of some additional security process as well as training for your team. We actually will test them as well, send them emails that appear to be legitimate and see how many of them click on these emails that are actually false, and just a phish test, we call it. That's it. Thanks for your time.